Okay, so over the last few days, a movement with a pretty, well, unconventional name has quietly taken over the internet and absolutely hijacked our political debates. We're talking about a group calling itself the Cockroach Janta Party. Now, before you just roll your eyes and dismiss this as another weird internet joke, we really need to look at the sheer scale of what's happening here. Without taking any political sides today, we're going to unpack how a simple meme page practically overnight turned into a massive digital mobilization. And, more importantly, why political analysts across the entire spectrum are suddenly scrambling to figure out what this means for the future of our democracy in this explainer.
Because what's truly staggering here is the velocity. We are talking about over 21 million followers. That is over 2 crore people. And you know what the craziest part is? They didn't spend decades building this base. Actually, they amassed this colossal following in essentially just 7 days. Just imagine that for a second. An Instagram page starts from zero and rallies a digital army of over 20 million people in a single week. I mean, that is a level of digital disruption that forces literally everyone from casual scrollers to top-tier politicians to stop and pay attention. To put that into perspective and to understand why the political establishment is kind of freaking out, you just have to compare their digital footprints. So the ruling BJP is sitting at around 8 million followers on Instagram right now. The main opposition, the Congress Party, they're at about 13 million. And then, towering over both of those legacy parties combined, is the newly minted Cockroach Janta Party, or CJP, with over 21 million. It's just wild. A week-old page is completely dwarfing organizations that have been building their brands for decades. So you're probably wondering, why? Like, what was the actual catalyst here? What drove millions of young people to suddenly hit that follow button right now? Well, answering that actually tells us a whole lot about modern digital behavior, and honestly, how fast collective sentiment can just snowball. To really get this explosion, we have to look at a highly specific chain of events that triggered a massive wave of frustration.
It definitely wasn't random. On May 3rd, boom, we had this massive controversy hit regarding the NEET 2024 medical entrance exams. There were widespread allegations of paper leaks and irregularities, and this affected roughly 2 million students. So right there, you have a massive baseline of youth anger. Fast forward to May 15th, and a controversial statement by the Chief Justice of India sparks even more debate online. Catching this massive wave of systemic frustration, the very next day, May 16th, founder Abhijit Dipke officially forms the Cockroach Janta Party online. The timing literally could not have been more perfectly aligned with peak youth disillusionment.
And here's the thing, they didn't just sit around farming likes. They immediately launched a real-world political maneuver. CJP's very first campaign channeled all that digital anger into one specific demand. They called for the resignation of India's Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan over the whole NEET fiasco. By doing this, they tapped right into deep-seated systemic youth frustration about unemployment and structural failures. And remarkably, this digital campaign actually started picking up vocal support from established opposition leaders who saw it as a way to amplify their own arguments.
But this brings us to a massive macro debate. At the end of the day, is this an actual legal political party, or is it just a really successful meme page? Political analysts are heavily divided on this. Some are calling it a revolutionary digital uprising, while others are super quick to point out the stark reality between a viral following and, a constitutional entity.
To clear up the legal side of things, analysts point straight to the Representation of the People Act. Under Indian law, you can't just open an Instagram account, rack up 20 million followers, and declare yourself a political party. There is a very strict, formal registration process required by the Election Commission. Without that paperwork, you can't legally contest elections, you can't even open a party bank account, and frankly, you don't officially exist in the democratic legal framework. So legally speaking, right now, CJP is a social media profile, not a recognized party. Now, because of its immense size, the established political players have absolutely had to respond. So how is the ruling party, the BJP, viewing this whole phenomenon? Well, reporting their stance neutrally, it's very clear they are highly critical and deeply skeptical of the CJP's sudden rise. They're pointing to what they believe are malicious undertones behind those massive numbers. The primary counterargument they're bringing up is pretty stark. During recent debates, a representative for the BJP claimed that a staggering 91% of the Cockroach Janta Party's sudden followers are actually bots or foreign accounts from places like Pakistan, Bangladesh, and the Middle East. They're claiming only 9% are genuine Indian users. Their core argument is simple. Foreign bots don't vote in Indian elections, so that 21 million figure is politically meaningless on the ground.
Furthermore, the ruling party has put out some very serious allegations and warnings to the youth. They claim this whole operation is actually a front for data harvesting, and they're explicitly warning young people not to share personal info. They also allege that the key founders are operating from abroad, places like the UAE and the US, and that some individuals involved have past links to the Aam Aadmi Party, along with alleged FIRs related to separatist incitement. Basically, the ruling party's message is a very strong warning of a coordinated, foreign-based deception.
All right, let's shift gears for a second. How does the main opposition party, the Congress, interpret this explosive trend, especially since it's heavily critical of the ruling government? As you might expect, their take focuses way more on the underlying sentiment of the followers, rather than just the structural legality of the page itself. A Congress representative actually framed their stance perfectly, saying, "This is a parameter and indicator that the youth of this country is angry with the current government." From their perspective, even if it is just a digital page, you simply cannot ignore 20 million people rallying behind anti-establishment content. They see the CJP not necessarily as a political ally, but as a legitimate, undeniable metric of boiling youth anger and anti-incumbency against the system. But it's worth noting that Congress is playing it safe too. They are not just blindly endorsing the Cockroach Janta Party. They have strict reservations. Before treating CJP as a serious democratic voice, Congress is demanding clarity on the page's core ideology. Like, where do they stand on secularism versus communalism? What are their actual economic policies? Do they uphold democratic values? Until those questions are answered, the opposition prefers to view them as a barometer for anger rather than a fully endorsed partner. So what happens next? Where is all this going? To get a sense of that, analysts suggest we zoom out from India for a minute and look at how digital disruption and meme movements have historically played out on the global stage. Because, believe it or not, the internet has actually spawned these unconventional joke parties before, and the results are wildly unpredictable. History gives us some fascinating and totally contrasting precedents. Take Greece in 2006. A joke party popped up promising bizarre things, like 2 sunsets a day and free beverages for everyone. It got massive traction online for the laughs, but when elections actually rolled around, it completely faded away. But then, look at Ukraine in 2019. A literal TV actor who played a corruption-fighting president on a sitcom used social media to launch a real campaign. The outcome? He actually won the presidency. It just shows that these digital eruptions can either vanish into thin air or shockingly take power. But we definitely need to ground those global examples back in Indian reality. And you have to hear this data point. During a recent election in Maharashtra, a celebrity candidate who had a massive 5.6 million followers on Instagram contested a seat. When the actual voting machines were opened up, he received exactly 175 votes. Ouch. It's a really sobering reality check that proves social media clout absolutely does not automatically equal a democratic mandate.
And that right there exposes the core friction of modern politics: digital disruption versus ground reality. Sure, it is incredibly easy to generate momentum through likes, shares, and algorithmic boosts. But winning an election in a massive, diverse democracy like India, that requires decades of grueling ground-level organizing, setting up booth workers in thousands of districts, navigating legal tape, and ultimately converting passive screen time into actual physical votes on Election Day.
Which leaves us with this one powerful, lingering question. We are watching an unprecedented digital mobilization unfold, and it's captured the attention of the highest levels of government. But as the Cockroach Janta Party continues to grow online, the ultimate test is still out there. Can this massive wave of social media anger actually break through the digital sphere and translate into real-world votes that change government? Or is it just another fleeting internet trend? Think about that as you're scrolling through your feeds today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.